مسجدي هذا أفضل من 4 صلوات فيه. That to pray in this masjid of mine is 4 times more rewardable than praying in that masjid, in Masjid Al-Aqsa. Now I'm going to pause in the hadith here. How much is it worth to pray in Masjid Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam? This is where I start asking you questions, by the way. So I'm going to actually expect answers. All 10 weeks, by the way. How much is it to pray in the Masjid of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? How many salawat? 1,000, right? So 1/4 of 1,000 is 250. But then there's another narration that's very famous, where the Prophet ﷺ alludes to it being worth 500 to pray in Masjid Al-Aqsa, and then 1,000 to pray in Masjid Nabi ﷺ, and then 100,000 to pray in Al-Masjid Al-Haram. So how do we reconcile between the seeming discrepancy here in the virtues? And the scholars say a few things. Some of them simply said that the hadith about 500 is not authentic, sanadan, in terms of its chain. Others mention that perhaps this is the fard versus the sunnah. Could be that this is an obligatory prayer versus a voluntary prayer. Some of them said perhaps it's jama'ah, praying in jama'ah, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to pray in jama'ah in Masjid Al-Aqsa. Some of them say it's jama'ah versus praying alone. And some of them say that the virtue may have been increased over time. And others say that perhaps an initial number was given to the Prophet ﷺ that was lower, and then Allah increased the number over time, which is done as when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the Prophet ﷺ that this number of your ummah, this percentage of your ummah will enter into Jannah, and Allah keeps increasing it as it's revealed to the Prophet ﷺ. In any case, it's highly virtuous. Another side note, which is extremely important, because some of us read this hadith and we go, okay, 100,000 in Masjid Al-Haram, 500 maximum in Masjid Al-Aqsa. Do you really think that your comfortable 5-star hotel in a tower right next to Masjid Al-Haram, which is perfectly air-conditioned, and you have all your restaurants and conveniences and buffets available to you while you walk to it, is greater in the entire picture than that person that has to climb over occupation soldiers and every single barrier and wait hours and hours under oppression to pray in Masjid Al-Aqsa? Maybe the salah itself indeed could have that virtue. وَكُلًّا وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الْحُسْنَى. Allah Azza wa Jalla has given everyone their reward. We don't have to diminish from the reward of 100,000 in Masjid Al-Haram. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant that to us, while still appreciating that certainly those people that have to climb these barriers, that have to overcome all of these disasters in order to pray Salatul Fajr in Masjid Al-Aqsa, will be rewarded for that struggle in its entirety, which is why the Prophet ﷺ did not stop there. He could have just said, look, a prayer in Masjid Nabawi is 4 times greater than a prayer in Masjid Al-Aqsa. Conversation stops. But this hadith, which is authentic in Al-Hakim, the Prophet ﷺ continues, قَالَ وَلَنِعْمَ الْمُصَلَّى. He said, what a beautiful and blessed musalla it is. قَالَ وَلَا يُوشِكَنَّ أن لا يكون للرجل مثل شطن فرسه من الأرض حيث يرى منه بيت المقدس خير له من الدنيا وما فيها. He said there will come a time that what will be more beloved to a person, that there will be nothing more beloved to a person than having a space the size of a horse's saddle, where he could simply see Masjid Al-Aqsa. That sight, that ability to occupy land, subhanAllah, this hadith is so deep because it recognizes the occupation of Al-Aqsa, the longing of the believers for it, and the shrinking of the land around it. That if a person just had a tiny horse's saddle, where they could just see Baytul Maqdis. Imagine a view of Baytul Maqdis. Right now, what's more precious to you? Your hotel room from which you can see the Kaaba without taking from any of the jalal of the Kaaba. Or a room, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, that we will occupy around Masjid Al-Aqsa, where the believers will visit from around the world, the Muslims that live there, hosting the Muslims that come and visit, with a view of Masjid Al-Aqsa. Prophet ﷺ said there will come a time where just having a horse's, you could be in a 1-star hotel. you could be in no hotel at all. If you're just in a tight land and you can see Masjid Al-Aqsa that is more beloved to you than the dunya and everything that is inside of it. I want you to continue along this journey with me, because what I'm trying to do is I want you to think about what's familiar to you of Mecca and Medina, and to place Jerusalem in its ranks, and to think about how it gets seared and embedded into our hearts. In the narration of Maymuna bin Sa'd, radiyallahu anha, not Maymuna, Zawj al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, but another Maymuna, radiyallahu ta'ala anha. Very famous narration where there's much debate over its chain, where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says to her that go ahead and pray in Masjid Al-Aqsa. "U'tuhu fasallu fihi." Go and pray in Masjid Al-Aqsa. And if you're unable to go and pray in Masjid Al-Aqsa, فَبْعَثُوا بِزَيْتٍ يُسْرَجُ فِي قَنَادِيلِهِ. Then at least send some oil to be used in its lamps. And subhanAllah, the last lecture that we gave in the firsts, where we take a break for a few months, inshallah ta'ala, to focus on the first Qibla, we talked about Tamim ad-Dari radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, al-Falastini, as Imam al-Dhahabi referred to him, the Palestinian Sahabi, who came to the Prophet ﷺ from Palestine as a Christian and became a notable companion of the Prophet ﷺ. And as Abu Sa'id radiyallahu anhu says, the first one to put lamps in the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet ﷺ is telling the Muslims in Medina that if the only thing you can do is to send some oil to put in its lamps, then do so. If that's the extent of your material connection, and you need to have a material connection, because just like salah is a material and physical exercise that emanates from the heart and encompasses all of our limbs, our attachment to Al-Aqsa cannot be some ambiguous philosophical picture that resides in our head alone. If the only thing you have is to fund some of the oil in its lamps, then do so. What then, as Ibn al-Jawzi rahimahullah says, that this narration is not just speaking about the oil in the lamps, but certainly is speaking about anything that is spent, li-islahiha, for the repairs of Masjid Al-Aqsa, for the constructions of Masjid Al-Aqsa, أو إنفاق على أهله, or to spend on the people around Al-Aqsa. What then of boycotting the lamps of the oppressors and not consuming the oil of the oppressors? As you look at this beautiful place in this terrible situation, I also want you to think about Surah At-Tin, وَالتِّينِ وَالزَّيْتُونِ وَطُورِ سِينِينَ وَهَذَا الْبَلَدِ الْأَمِينَ. What-tin? Tin is of course the fig. What is the fig referring to? Many of the ulama say that this is referring to the mountain of Al-Judi, which is where the Safina of Nuh alayhi salam, the ark of Noah settled.